Hey, a warm welcome to everyone this evening to the Inclusion Ireland Connect Family Network Roundtable on self-directed living and personalized budgets. We are delighted to have you join us. My name is Patria. I am an advocacy worker with Inclusion Ireland, and I'm here together today with colleagues Alex, who will be working on our IT, and Emer, who will be supporting us with our Q&A, and Derval McDonough, our CEO, who will be speaking to us in just a moment. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we continue. We are recording our session today. We will be recording up until the time of the Q&A. And that will be on our website for anyone you know who you think isn't here today who may be interested in learning more about self-directed living and personalized budgets. Our panelists are also visible, and I'll be introducing them in just a moment. It was hoped by our panelists, by all of us in the room, that we could make this more face-to-face. However, we had close to 200 people register for this evening, 199 to be exact. And we had to convert the session to a webinar. We have a good mix of people from around Ireland. Most people are new to the working of personalized budgets, and a few who've been in this area for some time who are quite knowledgeable. But of great interest among those of you who registered is an interest in making personalized budgets a reality in Ireland. The Connect Family Network, which is hosting our session this evening, has been around since 2016. It's a resource in Inclusion Ireland that aims to connect families. And you'll see there in the chat, Alex has listed a link to the Connect Family Network to connect families to advocate for family members. We also want to let you know throughout tonight's session that the chat will be available. Sorry, the Q&A is available for questions throughout any time throughout the evening. You can just put your questions into that chat there at the bottom of your screen, and questions may be answered live when we come to the Q&A, or my colleagues may look at those questions. So the purpose of the evening is to provide introductory information on self-directed living and personalized budgets, to give an understanding of what's possible and what is happening in Ireland. We feel it's important that family members get an opportunity to see what good support looks like, and to see that there are options, and to weigh the ups and downs of choices as a person goes through life. It's also, I wanted to point out, timely in that just last week in the Senate introduced the Disability Bill 2024 in the Senate last week. And it's very exciting, and we will be keeping our eyes on the progress of this bill going forward. Anecdotally, I wanted to point out too that what we know in Ireland is that there are about 300 families, anecdotally, even though we don't have data on families who have some kind of support, some type of direct payment, personalized budget support arrangement. And we want families to know that this does exist. So right now, I'd like to turn over to our CEO, Derval McDonough, who is going to give you some background on our connection at Inclusion Ireland with this topic.
Thank you, Patria, and thanks to all the panelists this evening for joining with us. And a real warm welcome, as Patria said, to all of you for joining us this evening for this really important and timely conversation about personalised budgets. And it was lovely to see in the registration some new friends and old join us tonight, some long-standing members who've been on the road with us for quite a number of years at Inclusion Ireland, and also some people who are new to the table and maybe curious about what's all this personalised budget stuff about. So it's really nice to have a whole range of people join us this evening as we explore this really important topic. And I suppose our role tonight is to inform individuals and their family members of personalised budgets as a real possible choice and how we can all work together to make that choice a reality across the state. So I suppose at Inclusion Ireland, we believe fully in the right of people with disabilities to choose the supports that they want and need to live a good life. And we know that we're a way off this vision in the state, but we also know that it's absolutely possible to achieve it with the right mindset, some creativity, and some commitment from government to people with disabilities and their families. And I suppose that what we see and what we reflect on at Inclusion Ireland is that for too long in the past, we've encouraged people with intellectual disabilities and their families to fit into very narrow boxes. If you're a child, do you fit into a special class, a special school, or mainstream? What if you're a child who doesn't fit neatly into any one of those boxes, but needs the system to bend and flex to suit you? And for adults, we offer a certain levels of services like day services, respite, residential supports. But what if people want something completely different? None of the above, all of the above, are something new entirely. The result of all this box fitting is that we often make people feel they should be grateful for any support that they get. And it's also true that for many people, unfortunately, it takes a crisis for us to act and to support and respond. And unfortunately, when we respond to people with intellectual disabilities and their families at crisis times, we've missed a million opportunities along the way to support people earlier, better, more humanely in communities across Ireland. And those days of crisis management absolutely need to draw to a close. And we know there are many people, families, and individuals working within the system who want better and who are actively working every day to create better supports for people. And we see you and we acknowledge you and we know that you're there and we have got to collectively demand better and we will. So at Inclusion Ireland, just to say, all of our work is through the prism of human rights and explicitly the rights set out in the United Nations Convention. Um, and there's often a curiosity about that is why we have this relentless focus on human rights. And the way that I answer that these days is by saying that really rights are fundamentally about freedom. Freedom to be who you are, freedom to live the life you want to live in the way you want to live it, and to get support from the state when you need it to live a decent, ordinary life. So, rights are much more than just a declaration on a page from UNCRPD. As a state, we've got to live and breathe them, resource them, honour them, and in do so, honouring all people as equals. But as we know, it's only the first step in being recognised as equal. And that's not enough. We must also look at what support people need to access their rights. And this is where personalised budgets can and do play a pivotal role. It's not my role this evening to talk you through about what personalised budgets are. I'll leave that to our panel of experts who are living what personalised budgets mean every single day. And they are going to share the full picture, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, so that you can make an informed decision if this is something you and your loved ones may like to explore. So there's lots of opportunities coming up, and not to bring politics into it, but everything is political. Elections are about to be called, and Inclusion Ireland are going to launch. We're going to launch our manifesto tomorrow, and in that we talk about long-term solutions, getting out of crisis mode and into real life planning with people and families for a better life. And we mention personalised budgets as a real viable option. in that manifesto that should be more universally accessible for those who want to choose it. As we know, personalised budgets are not for everyone, but I don't know a single service or set of supports which is universally for everybody. But they should and could be a real choice for people who want life amongst their family in their own community and who want to go the long and winding road with it. So just I'm going to finish up now and hand back over to Patria, but just to say next year Ireland will be reporting to the UN in September of 2025 on how we're progressing under UN CRPD. And we invite all of you who've joined us here this evening to come on the journey with us as we highlight your voices, support you to speak up and make sure that you're heard as part of that process. And you can support us if you want to and if you choose to by becoming a member. And Alex will share some of the details in the chat about how you can go about doing that. The more members we have, the louder our voices can be, and the more that we can insist on real choice and the realization of fundamental freedoms and a good life for people with intellectual disabilities and their families. I'll hand you back over to Patria now and with a warm welcome.
Thank you, Derval. That gives us a great platform to introduce our panelists today. I'm going to go through and just introduce them briefly, very briefly, just to give you a sense of the people in the room that are going to be sharing with us here today. After that, Avril will be sharing with us on self-directed support and personalized budget in her experience. And Karen will be giving us her experience, their experience of a personalized demonstration project. So to begin, we'll begin with Avril. Avril is passionate about equality, social justice, and citizenship. She lives with her family in Limerick. Alongside her 26-year-old disabled son, she co-manages a support arrangement with a personalized budget. Jonathan, Jonathan Angus, is the second half of a son and father team that make up the social enterprise Fionathan Productions. Originally from the US and currently ringing us from the US, where he began 20 years of teaching in Steiner Waldorf schools, he moved to County Clare in 2001 and to Galway 10 years ago, accompanying Fionn. They are pioneers in self-directed supports and independent advocacy. Next, we have Willie Walsh, who lives in Westport with his wife, Anna. They have only one of 5 children left in the house. He loves the Father Ted series. His kids think he is nuts when he starts singing My Lovely Horse. He thinks they might be right as he doesn't even like horses. And Karen McCormick lives in Inishowen, County Donegal. And for the past 3 years, Karen has successfully managed her daughter's personalized budget, allowing her to thrive. This experience inspired her to create the In Charge app, which helps people and families who self-direct care to easily manage their support teams. So with this incredible panel of experts in the room, we'll begin with looking at self-directed support with Avril, and then with Karen, the current personal budget demonstration project. From there, we'll be going into a roundtable discussion with each of our panelists, looking further and more deeply into each topic area. So Avril.
Thanks, Patria. And hello, everyone, and delighted to be with you here this evening. A lovely evening here in Limerick, so I hope it's nice with wherever you are in the country. Yeah, so I'm going to have a go here at explaining what is self-directed living and a personalised budget. Following on from what Derval has said there about the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and their right to choose what happens for their life. Self-directed living is about making that actually happen. That somebody with a disability can have all the things that other citizens have, as Derval referred to all those rights. To have an ordinary life, doing ordinary things in ordinary places, and that the person themselves with their family can direct what will happen in their lives. And I suppose if we think for a minute about that word, self-direct, we do this all the time with our neurotypical teenagers. Like if we think about the chats and conversation we have with young people, say in their early teens, we talk about, what might be their favorite subject at school, or what they're into. It could be sport or music or art, and that follows on. Then, like in their way, they're self-directing, talking about what their lives might be after school, and where they go to college, or if they want to get a job, or whatever they might want to do, and all those kinds of conversations. But those conversations have not been, and still in many cases are not available for many people with disabilities. And this, we want this to change. Um, and and that's what's hopefully with the UN Convention, as Derval says, with inclusion being rights based. This is what it's about. This change. So as I move on to talk about the budget bit, the personalised budget, um, budget is the money part. So it's the funding part for the support. So to make it happen, where that the person can choose the support that they want, and how it's organised. So, as many of you may know, typically funding is allocated when somebody is leaving school. At age 18, there is the school leavers assessment profiling, or school leavers assessment process. And from that, there is like an allocation of funding given by the HSE. And then that funding is used for a place in a service. With the personalised budget, that funding can be kept separate, and the person and their family can use that funding to set up their own support arrangement and hire staff. I just want to say here, in reference to personalised budgets, that personalised budgets are suitable for everyone, irrespective of their level or impact of disability. There is a kind of a notion out there that this personalised budget is only for people who are more able, but this is absolutely not the case. This is suitable for everyone. But the thing is, in Ireland, there is very little support for at the moment for this way of working, and we want that to change. There is significant help, and systems are in place in other countries for this whole way of working. Some of us here are involved in both the Ireland, and there's a global self-directed network. And we want this help and support and systems change so this can be an option for people. We want this for Ireland. And maybe the best way to explain the budget bit, the personalised budget, is to tell you a little bit about our family story. So as Patria said earlier in her introduction, that we co-manage a personalised budget for our son Stephen. And Stephen is the eldest of our three now adult children. And just to let you know that he has given his consent to share his story this evening, knowing that we're going to be talking about that this is a good way of working. And this evening, at the end of our session, Stephen has given us a short video that he and his staff have put together that will give you a sense of his life. But anyway, Stephen wants the same life as his siblings in many ways. He wants to do the things that he's interested in, and he wants to friends and go out and get a job and have a bit of fun and crack, kind of along the way. Um, Stephen has very high support needs. He has all those lovely labels, including severe intellectual disability, autism, sensory, and so he's at the more complex end of support needs. So kind of what happened for us was, when Stephen was 18, we went to visit all the local day services, and from going around looking at them all, we knew that they weren't going to work for him, and what his interests were or are. And yet the message from the HSE, as Derval was referred to earlier, like the allocation of a place was based on his diagnosis, and that was the place that he was and if he got the place, we were going to be like super lucky to have that place. Um, and yet we could see that that wasn't gonna work for him. It was just that place with no other option. So so what we decided to do was, instead of Stephen going into the group day service, the segregated group day service, we were able to take that funding and use it to set up his own support arrangement. He has a team of three support staff, and we work with the AT network. So I guess in summary, if trying to tie those two things together, the self-directed living and the budget, the personalized budget, what it's about creating a really good life for someone. And to do this in a meaningful way, there is so much involved to make it happen, and to make it a reality. The importance, in doing this work, the importance of having a vision with high expectations, really intentional planning, hearing at all times, hearing and honoring Stephen's voice, importance of governance, a very strong framework of practice, building a team. Like, there is loads to this. And we have a practice coach to help us, and to keep Stephen's voice front and central, and which has been vitally important for us in Stephen's support arrangement. So I guess what I'm saying is, this is not for the faint-hearted, because there is an amount of work involved. But we would not have it any other way. It it has been life-changing for Stephen and for our family in a really, really positive way. And we want you this evening to know that this does exist in Ireland. As Patria said earlier, there are actually hundreds of us working in this way, and we want more people to ask for it, so that government will put the right supports and systems in place, and as what has happened and is happening in other countries. So I hope that kind of gives you the gist of the concepts. And in summary, the key words are, self-directed living and personal budgets are to enable people to live well with the support that they choose. So I'm going to hand over to Karen now, and just to say, you'll hear a little bit more about Stephen before we go on to the questions and answers later on. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Avril. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Avril. Hi, everybody, and thanks for having us and joining us this evening. I'm going to talk about our experience on the personalised budget demonstration project, which is really about empowering people with disabilities and their families to have greater choice and control over how their support needs are met. And this, we're on the budget pilot now for 3 years. Actually, I think today or yesterday, I'm just thinking. And we set a target to start on a date. We did the transition process. We kind of got caught in COVID in that process as well. So some of that was done online. So we were a bit later doing the process than we probably would have liked, but we still made it work. I think what Avril said about planning was really important. And during the transition assessment, which is a really stressful process for anybody who's going to go through it, because you're really presenting nearly the worst case scenario of your person or your loved one, and that's not really what you want to be doing. But you have to also present the reality of their support needs and what they're going to be. So Willie actually was really instrumental in helping us create that vision and that support plan at the beginning, and that was really it's really fundamental, I think, for parents and families to support each other throughout that. So we opted. So when we got the allocation, we got agreed the allocation. We were there's three options on the personalised budget programme. There's a person managed fund, there's a co-managed fund with the HSE, or there's a broker managed fund. And I think there's actually a combination of all three of those as well, which is makes it sound complicated, and it kind of is. But the point of it is that it's flexible and it's meant to flex in order to meet the needs of the person. So it can be a combination of those. So we opted for the person managed fund. Um, so that means that we set up a company with a dedicated bank account. We have payroll software. We have our own insurance, which everybody has. And we did the Garda vetting. And we directly hire personal assistants to support our daughter. So our daughter, Georgia, is coming 23 next month. And she has no speech. So understanding what her needs are and what her will and preferences are is very much reliant on us as a family and the people that are close in her life. And I suppose that brings up a question around the culture of who knows best. And we have to trust that families who are supporting the person all their life, that they, particularly when there are communication challenges, that they're doing their best to advocate for that person. And that relies a lot on um, working together as a team, and that we've found that as a big success, but also a challenge in having personal assistance. So communicating those needs and also communicating that we don't always know the answer as parents. That there's a lot of figuring out. So we went started out by advertising, which is really daunting, because you're really worried about, is anybody going to apply? Does anybody even understand what the role is? And people did apply and they did understand the role. Some didn't understand the role, and that was fine. Um, and we initially went out to hire one person, but we had two really good connections. So we had the flexibility to hire two people with the money, and that has been a great success. Um, so one of our first PAs has moved on, and again we looked at the Georgia and her needs and how it was working, and we decided that we would hire actually two people. So we now have three personal assistants, and that we have a kind of structured week because Georgia works well with structure. And she does get tired as well. So she compartmentalizes different parts of her week depending on who's there. It's funny how she connects differently to different people. And the role of a personal assistant is different from the traditional care worker role that people quite often compare it to, because it's really about that connection and understanding that we're all working to support this one person. And that includes our other three children, with three teenagers younger. Um, and our family home becomes the workplace. It has become the workplace as well. So there's a lot of work, I suppose, sensitivity, and maybe we're not always in good form in the morning, but we have people coming into our house. But we all know and we all agree that this is overwhelmingly better, or the best option right now for Georgia. And I say right now because who knows what the future will bring, and who knows what options might arise. But this really works well for us. And Georgia's week is, you know, uh, regular, I suppose is the best word I can think of. Just doing regular things in the community. And that could be Zumba or going to musical memories. She volunteers for a loan. And that's a new thing that really works really well. And it plays to her strength. So we have an older person who needs groceries. Georgia's favorite thing in the world to do is grocery shopping. So that's a really good match, and something unexpected that we didn't think we would be able to do. She does classes, she exercises, she does her chores, and really her skills and her sense of confidence in her own self, and her communication has really improved as a result. And that, I suppose, is a surprise to us, that how well she can communicate and how well her communication, although it's not through speech or sign, that it is received by people in their community who have really embraced the whole arrangement, I suppose, or the whole yeah, it's been amazing. I think one of the instrumental things for us has been transport. We got Georgia a car before she started on the budget. And I suppose that was, you know, I suppose other children her age were going getting learning to drive and going to college, and um maybe leaving home or getting part-time jobs, and that wasn't within her range or her sphere at that time. But get in the car, my husband organized that, and it's the happiest car. Well, I will testify, it is the happiest car you'll ever see. The wee Fiat 500, every girl's dream, mint green. And people recognize her in her community. Her PAs drive her car. um, I'm sometimes allowed to drive it, not always. George isn't allowed to drive it at all, my husband. But in a rural setting, that's really important, that you're able to get around, um, and yeah, with the challenges of public transport. Um, but the car has been a really great success. And I suppose Derval mentioned about crisis management, and that's just so often the case. And this is different. This is actually proactive, and it works better. As Avril said, the word I think I use is transformative, and that's not just for Georgia, that's for our life, for her staff who have found really rewarding jobs that they love, and our community who see her differently, and our other kids who get the freedom to be teenagers growing up. And we'll probably touch on this in the question and answers. But I suppose I was so worried about getting started, and I think with the budget office, I said, this is the date. We're starting. We weren't ready. Well, we were ready, but there were so many obstacles. But you have to pick a date and go with it and get it going. And once you're going, it is really stressful the first few months finding your feet, because you're suddenly an employer and you have all that legal responsibility. But also, once you see it's working well, that overwhelmingly takes over. You just, there's no alternative, I suppose, in my mind, whenever you see how successful it is for Georgia. Um, and I suppose at the beginning, I was really worried about managing the money in a really transparent way. But that then, because of everything's electronic, that's all there. I suppose it's really about managing the relationships between your person, and their staff and you as the employer. So that is really the core lesson I think I've learned over the 3 years. Is it's really about managing those relationships well, and keeping Georgia at the center of the why. Why are we doing this? And everybody stays on message, and is flexible. And that's what it offers. It offers flexibility, to make sure that it's working for her. So that's, I suppose, the introduction from me, and happy to take questions afterwards. I am passing now, Patria, to
No, to myself. Thank you,
you.
Karen.
Okay.
Thank you. Uh, at this point, we're going to move into our roundtable and look at specific questions around self-directed living and personalized budgets, just so that you in the audience are not too overwhelmed, know that on the close of this call, you will be receiving a packet of information from Inclusion Ireland that gives you an opportunity to delve further into this area, because a lot of concepts have been thrown out already in terms of trying to understand the pathways. There are multiple pathways. There are as many pathways as there are individuals involved in the receipt of personalized budgets, and certainly in looking at independent living, it's as independent as the person themselves. So that's what we're going to look at now in our roundtable. So with our panelists, I've devised two sets of questions, a first round and a second round. And in our first round, we're going to look at the two questions. Why did your family member or your family want a personalized budget? And what has been the best part of the personalized budget? So we're going to begin this first round with Jonathan, please.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. I have my son Fionn here. I just want to briefly introduce the second half of our team, or I'm the second half. Here's the first half. Hello. Fionn, we're where right now? Patricia already mentioned we're not in Ireland at the moment.
That's true, yes.
Where are we?
We we are in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, in the States of America.
Mm-hmm. And what are you doing during this call to keep yourself active?
I have been studying the, the the different kinds of raptors of America, and also the various types of raptors that visit America as well.
Okay, so you're always studying wildlife, it seems, when you're not doing your other primary passion, which is what? You brought something with you on this trip?
Yes, I did. I brought my fiddle with me.
To play a bit of traditional Irish music?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you want to step off?
Sure.
So thank you for that indulgence, and I wanted you to meet Fionn. So, Patria, what we did 10 years ago was much as Avril described. We researched the day services on offer, and we also found them lacking. I had a bit of a leg up on that research project because I was a member of the research team that evaluated the public feedback on new directions. And, you know, the HSE itself has said the day services are not fit for purpose. They don't align with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, and they require a dramatic overhaul. And so I would just say that Fionn's ambitions for a good life could not be contained within them. So we sometimes fought, sometimes persuasively argued for a personal budget. We were told by the HSE officer that Fionn was the first person in Ireland with an intellectual disability to be provided with a personal budget. The best part, I think, of a personal budget is that it is personal, which leaves the many choices of how to spend resources to the individual and her or his family. Now, we are libertarians on this. So when it comes to personal budgets, we think that more choices, the better. But also, in some cases, freedom from choice should still be part of the package, right? So maybe it's not for every family to decide which kind of insurance to buy, right? Or to work out all the ins and outs. And so really, we think the traditional service providers should get in the game of personal budgets, but only to the degree that the individual family is looking for. So something of an a la carte service would be really good. Fionn loves to socialize, and why shouldn't he be? Why by making the choices, he's just out of the system entirely. Things like hiring whoever you want is really important, not this idea that, oh, it's dangerous if you hire a family member. We don't think it's dangerous. We think it can be the right choice. A fixed contract or flexible as needed hours using funds for other things than employing people, other things that help you have a good life. We think that level of freedom is really important, and it's all to play for. It's not a binary, either you have or you don't have personal budgets. Traditional services need to be into this plan. In Australia, everybody with a disability has a personal budget, and then they decide whether to buy the service that the service providers offer. So we'd be looking for something like that. But really, it is possible. We're early in this process, so that's what I would say is the best thing about it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Karen?
I'm trying to find my Zoom. So yeah, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Patria. Why did we join? Yeah, I think what Jonathan said about personalised, for us, it was Georgia spreading her wings, and I think quite often people with disabilities are grouped together, irrespective of whether personalities or whether they actually are compatible or get on. And also I think it's around a really great opportunity to carve out your own identity in your own space. And we definitely found that for Georgia, who can sometimes be passive. So it's really brought her own personality to the fore. There was also limited options locally, if I'm being honest, that we were yeah, they weren't. We were worried that if she went in there, that that she could be there for life, and that really is quite scary when you're leaving school. None of us choose the rest of our life at 19. I think that why should that be any different for somebody with a disability? And I think for like optimum choice and control, if something doesn't work, then we change it. We don't stick with something because we have to. We change according to what works and what doesn't work. The best thing, I suppose, is seeing Georgia thrive. And as I said, not only in her own skills and confidence, but also locally in the community. How people see her, how people give her the space to have time. Time is a massive plus in a personalized budget, and having that personal assistant who's there to give you time to learn the skills, whether that's going in to the post office to do your banking or your work during the week. Just having that space to physically learn how to do things for yourself. And how people communicate with her. So I think for me, the acceptance and the kind of the how the community has embraced it has been a real positive. So that's for me the best.
Lovely. Thank you, Karen. Willie, why a personalized budget?
By a personalized budget. Um, well, I think it's really simple. Uh, like with Jonathan and like with Karen and Avril, there's no way that a traditional service as we have found them here in the West or indeed anywhere else could be able to contain and support somebody who's a live wire, who's really forthright, really creative, who, kind of puts clicking and getting on well with somebody more important than being with somebody who just is with them because they have an institutional role. And finally, and this is really important for us, she doesn't identify as a disabled person, and her identity is just way bigger. Uh, and it was just no way that a person who is that forthright and that creative and that much of a live wire would be anything other than trouble, right, in a service. And that's really what it boils down to. Um, when I was well, when she was in primary school, we had a really difficult time because all of those things really don't fit in school either, you know. Um, and at one particular stage, I ended up in my friend Mick Corbett's Friday afternoon, just before finishing work office, and I was kind of in a bad place because we were having such a bad time in school, and he was one of the wisest people that I've ever come across. And he said, you know, he says, you know, there's a name for you that they have in the HSE and in other places. And I kind of looked at him, and this is after a rant of about 20 minutes about how difficult school was. He says, well, you're a non-compliant service user. That's what you're called. And I think that most of the people here are non-compliant service users. Certainly, uh, I don't want my daughter to become a non-compliant service user because that's what would happen. Because it's painful being non-compliant, and it's not fair uh, to be expected to be part of a service when it just doesn't work. So that's really the reason why. And you know, I've been helped on the way. We've all been helped on the way by you know the work that Karen and Jonathan and you know other families have done. We didn't join the personal budget thing until the very end, uh, because we're doing okay as it was, and also to tell the truth, I wanted to see how it worked out and or how it's going to work out. So it's worked out well for us. We're a year on it at this stage. Um, the other day, Amber says, Dad, we need a new videographer and a social media person. Because that's what she's into, video and social media. She's saying, you know, if somebody's moving on, we need a new person. You better get on it because really, I'm not really waiting around for uh, just hanging around and doing nothing. This is important to me. So that's what it means. It means being able to take direction from a person on how they want to live their life and what they want to do, and how they want to use the resources that have been afforded to them. And why wouldn't she? That's really it. That's why we are on it is because, you know, why wouldn't we be? Why wouldn't she be? That's it.
Thank you, Willie. Follow her lead. Indeed. Avril.
Yeah, I think I touched on it already there that we knew that the like the others had said too, like just that we knew that the place that Stephen was going to be put as dictated by the HSE just wasn't gonna work for him. And what has been the best bit? I have 100 stories to tell you, but I'm just going to zoom in on the one, and that is Stephen's confidence and his voice. So at that school leavers profile or school leavers assessment back when Stephen was 18, Stephen was classified as non-verbal. And then, in his early 20s, we hear his voice, the words are coming. And it is just the most powerful thing in the whole world to really hear his voice. So, when you get the right people in the right environment and really put the person at the center with choice and control in a meaningful way, like amazing things happen. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Avril. That ends our first round. We'll move into the second round and also to let our participants know that Willie has to leave us here soon. So if he disappears from the screen, he is jumping off into another meeting. So we'll begin with you, Willie, with our first our of the two questions in our second round. So what has been difficult in having a personalized budget, if anything? And what would you suggest or recommend to somebody who is interested in a personalized budget?
Okay, so what's been difficult? You know what? It's not an easy road. Any choice that we make, right, has consequences, and I think that April has alluded to this, the challenges in Karen around, recruitment and guard vetting and all these kind of things. Okay, it's not it isn't for the faint-hearted. You need to have your wits about you. Um, so that's certainly the case. But what we've learned most important is that, you don't have to have a personal budget. You don't have to get involved in all of that side of things to take more control back. Okay. And really, a lot of this is about asserting a degree of control over people's lives. I would say to uh, anybody who's here, first of all, it's great to know that there's so many people who are interested in it. Okay. But if we don't have the opportunity, or we don't have the, let's say, the openness and service to perhaps go down and avail of a budget, really important things that we can do, take control of the plan for a good life for yourselves and for the person in your family that is at the center of your concern, right? Take control of a good life and plan for it. Don't plan for a good service. Second thing is, Karen talked there about the importance of having a vision. Vision is like a big word, but it's really simple, right? Take control of the vision and learn to articulate it and say it whenever you're engaging with anybody in the community. It doesn't matter, services, non-services, shopkeepers, people who you might be looking for work with or whatever. I'd say invest in yourself, connect up, right, with all these people. Connect up with Inclusion Ireland. Connect up with the Connect People Network, Connect Family Network. Connect up with LEAP or Clan Bio or the Inclusive Living Network, or the training that the In Conversation series is going to do around that kind of taking control. Connect up, because, one of the things in the personal budget scheme that we've really tried hard to break is to get them to connect us up with each other. Now, there's loads of institutional reasons why they wouldn't do that. They say, well, people mightn't want to have your phone number or want to have your email address. If there's anybody out there who wants to connect up and talk about it, my email address is gone into the chat. Alex is going to pass it on. I don't care. We all want to connect up. We all need to know that there's other people on this route. And listen, we mightn't we mightn't be that useful, or we might have bad news, or we might have like stuff that is like too hard to do. But listen, connect up. Um, knowing Karen, knowing Jonathan, knowing Avril, and knowing all of the other people who are part of, let's say, the Inclusive Living Network, or whatever gathering it is, it's super, right? It just gives you the opportunity to think that there is an alternative. So connect up is the final thing that I would say, and that helps things work a little bit better. I probably went off script there, but anyways, I wanted to make sure to say those things before I
I'd
went
be
away. And
worried.
could I say, just listen, I'm really sorry that I have to go, but
I'd
I
be
feel really
worried,
good.
Willie.
I feel
I'd be
really
worried
good,
if you
right?
didn't
I
go
feel
off
really
script.
good that there's so many people, right? There's so many people who are interested and who want
Yes,
to, who
fantastic.
kind of are curious. Stay curious, right?
Mm,
It's the basis for, you know, richer life. That's really
indeed,
all
indeed,
that I need to say.
indeed. Thank you ever so much, Willie, for your time. Much, much appreciated. We'll see you again soon.
Am I being kicked off now?
No. I thought you had to go.
I
And
do, yeah, but I'm sorry about that. Anyways,
we're not kicking you off at all. Stay. Um, so we're the second round of questions. What's been difficult having a personalized budget, and what advice or suggestions would you give, Karen?
Yeah, I have probably a long list of, the challenges. Some of them are practical and some of them are within your control and some of them aren't. So, when you're starting out cash flow, the budget office worked with us to get that sorted out because you have outlays at the beginning. like insurance if you're it's opt-in for the version that we did. So that was quite high expenditure. So practical things like that. I think one of the challenges has been an early adopter of a new system or a new way of working, means that you mightn't have as much information or on how to approach it as you would like. So that hasn't really been tried or tested. So that's been a challenge. Um, the mechanics of getting established was quite stressful for me. And that was based on really wanting to get things right, and be transparent, do well, and whether we whether it's intentional or not, most people who, and I've worked across the UK as well, so most people that I have talked to who have a family member with a disability live in fear of services being withdrawn or losing access, or things changing. And that can be quite a challenge. And it's not even rational at times, but that fear exists. Um, and I suppose the time investment, there is a time commitment to doing it as a parent. Um, but again, you know, I, I think when you see the benefits, they outweigh. Um, so that's really important. I think what Willie said is also really important, that not every option has to be pure. You don't have to go for the most stressful. You can try a version, and if it doesn't work, change to a different version. So, work on a co-managed way, to get confidence. And then, if you feel that that's something for you, then go for the person managed. But I don't think it has to be one. It's not that you're selecting one for forever. Well, hopefully not anyway. And I believe that the pilot will move to a different phase. I don't think it's working well. So I don't imagine, particularly when it's working across the rest of the world, that we would stop it suddenly. So I think it'll just move, hopefully, to a different phase of implementation. In terms of what would I give someone who's interested, what advice? Um, I completely agree with Willie, is connect with other families. And I think, and organizations and networks like this, that this is hugely important. To have such big numbers here tonight is really inspiring and really good. And I think Willie mentioned about being a non-compliant service user, otherwise known sometimes, and for parents, as like being a difficult parent, um, in service land. And or you can reframe it and say you're a resilient parent that is proactively seeking a better life, or the best life that you can offer your young person or your child. So I think, be proactive, connect in with your CHO and the budget office, keep vocalizing, asking. I think there's a lack of consistency across the country on what CHOs what you're in. Well, I know that because families, often reach out, and as Wally says, we respond, because it's how we got on to it in the beginning, was from connecting into other families. So yeah, that would be my suggestion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Jonathan, so what has been difficult and what suggestions might you share?
Thank you. Uh, well, the same thing as what I said at the beginning. What has been wonderful about it is the personalized aspect. It's also what's the most difficult, um, because it means that you're navigating it alone, or it often does, and that's really problematic, and challenging and frustrating, and in so many ways that has to change. We have to be able to talk to each other, to be able to. Part of that just comes to our own confidence, and to be able to share, and not be afraid. But part of that is also the systematic way that we're being separated. Also, because there's no rule book about personal budgets in Ireland printed yet, On the one hand, that means there's no rules. So it's, I mean, there are, but there's a limited number, and you can stretch a few of them if it makes more sense for your family, because they don't exist, because it's only one HSE official who's saying this is the way it must be, and you can push back on that and saying, who told you that? What show me in writing where it says that my son can't do this or that with his money. So that can be a good thing, but on the other hand, it's not fair that that the people on this call are really good at advocating for their family members, and those are the ones who have personal budgets. It's just not fair that it's so hard to do that, and that it's only, yeah, only the privileged, in a sense, are the ones currently who have personal budgets because they have family members who, have the wherewithal and pull out all the stops, and have the knowledge, and have the connections. That's not a good thing at all. I really feel quite badly about that. So I think that we need the yeah, we need to be inclusive of everyone, and that's not. It's already been said that means our family members' ability levels or challenges, inclusive of everyone in that sense, but also inclusive of everyone in terms of like how linked into the system you are. I mean, I feel that we didn't buy tickets to service land, but we definitely, sneak over the fence once in a while, and we are a bit fearless. So, but we try to be. And Martin Naughton was a great influence upon us, and really the reason why Fionn got his personal budget. And he was fearless. And the reason why we connected with through AT Network was Martin. But that meant we had to set up a company, which is a bit ridiculous, right? That you have to set up a company so that the HSE can consider you to be a service provider for one person. That's just how they made it work. It's a bit silly. Um, but we took that and turned it into an advantage because Fionn had so many ambitions in life, and some of those are beneficial if you have a company, have a social enterprise. So it's increased his voice, our voice, significantly in the world. And here in America, where they have a particular take on the English language, our company name, which is Fionathan Productions, the Fionathan part sounds a bit like fear nothing or fear nothing. And so that's very much a motto for us. And setting up the company meant that with the social enterprise, we weren't as reliant upon the HSE's money, right? So we have other income and other expenses, and we were able to hire Fionn and to use the wage subsidy scheme to pay for half of his wages. And I'd be happy to tell all our secrets at another time. But I think that's the kind of thing that we just thought up outside the box. It is, as Willie said, it's not just a service; it's a life, right? So the advice that I would leave with is to encourage you to think big with your family member and to think holistically, think whole life, and think of this personal budget as being one tool that can help you to achieve a good, harmonious, ambitious life for your family member and for yourself.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think Martin also emphasized quite often, Martin Naughton, about not fearing what you imagine. You know, take the fear out of your imagination. Avril.
Yeah, I don't really have much to to add. I think the others have said it all there, really. What's been difficult is the expectation on the work involved for the family, like the setting up the company and all of that jazz. Like that's a lot. It's a big thing for families. And what advice would I give? Go for it, go ask for it. This model is supported in other countries, and we want this properly supported in Ireland with the right system. So it really is a choice for people. So if you're interested, connect with other people, ask lots of questions, and go for it. Ask at your local HSE, and don't be discouraged if they say that it doesn't exist. It does exist, and you can reach out to any of us to help you out to move forward with that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I'm going to draw us to a close. I know that we probably could spend the evening with this extraordinary panel of individuals, and the stories that have been told tonight are very, very rich. I'd like to extend Inclusion Ireland gratitude to each of you for your time, your energy, and your talent, your passion, especially shared here this evening, and your vision. And I think, as has been said many times this evening, that we need to collect this vision. It needs to be a collective vision around moving forward and making personalized budgets more equitable, as Jonathan has emphasized, for individuals, and a real choice that's based in the rights of the individual to live the life that she or he chooses in their own community. So to continue the conversation, not this evening, as promised, we'll finish here. But I will put into the chat there my email, simply Patria at Inclusion Ireland. And if you would like to continue this conversation, if you would like in particular to connect with any of our panelists, please get in touch with me and I will ensure that that happens. We're very engaged, as Derval has said, in moving this forward, and especially as Ireland will be reviewed next year at the UN. So it's a real good time, for us to push forward. In the next few days, as I mentioned, you will receive a resource which has further information, much of what we've touched upon tonight. And I want to thank my colleague, Michelle, and our communications team who put that together. And before we close, there will be a survey that will be sent out to you. If you might take a couple minutes on that survey, that would be very useful for Inclusion Ireland, again, moving forward in this area. But before I say goodnight, I want to give Jonathan the floor one last time, just to mention, it's been mentioned here tonight, the self-directed support network. Jonathan?
Thank you. And I'm bringing in my partner for this.
Yes.
We have been the international ambassadors for Citizen Network for a number of years.
Yeah.
And Citizen Network is a wonderful project that all of you should consider joining up with. But more specifically, they run the Self-Directed Support Network.
Yeah.
Which is an international project, and we're learning about how different self-directed support systems are being developed in different countries, because we learn, of course, by listening to others' mistakes and their successes. So we've established the Self-Directed Support Network Ireland branch, and we want to invite you to become involved. There's a quite of a core group that consider themselves or would like to be leaders in the process, and there's a wider group that is simply people who are interested, people who will be on the email list and in the know. And you can select, maybe you have the energy to consider becoming a leader. Maybe you just want to find out what's happening and keep abreast of developments. So anything to say about it?
It's a great way to start conversations about self-directed support and personal budgets as well.
Yes, so please, when you reach out to Patria after this, just mention that you're interested in the Self-Directed Support Network of Ireland, and she will forward your email contact to us, and we'll make sure you're in the loop on that.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, welcome back, Willie. We're just in our closing here this evening. So again, I want to reiterate, remind you that to keep in touch with us at Inclusion Ireland, either through emailing me or becoming a member. We're very interested in the energy that we've been shown with this event here tonight. That going forward, that it may become a real possibility in terms of protected by government. And Willie, you have a final word?
So much a final word. It's just a plea, if I could, to anybody who's on this call, who's part of the personal budget demonstration project. Can you please make contact with us? We are not clear from the department how it's going to be administered from next year on. And unless we pull together and engage together with them, they will continue to do what they always do, and that's walk the hell all over us. Please get in contact.
Lovely. Thank you very much for your time this evening and your energies, and we wish you a very good evening. Good night.